the discovery of psychedelics is the discovery that all of this cultural machinery is just Wizard of Oz stuff.
Don't think. Feel. It is like a finger pointing away to the moon. Don't concentrate on the finger or you will miss all that heavenly glory.
And they may well ask, why climb the highest mountain? Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills.
That's it. How did it feel to you?
We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other thing. Not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
The prophecy is true.
Welcome to the Astral Mind Podcast.
What's up, guys? It's Cat Marquez, and welcome to the Astral Mind Podcast. This is the 5th episode of the Astral Mind Podcast, and I've got my co-host, Taylor Melquez, my wife. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing and liking this podcast episode. I make podcasts at least once a week with a supplemental upload that you can find on my channel. And if you're a long-time subscriber and you enjoy the work that I'm doing and you want to support, consider going down to the link in the description below and becoming a Patreon. Thank you all. I love your faces. Let us begin. So we're going to start with something a little different. I want to see how it feels, but we're going to start with a tarot reading. And my wife does the tarot readings. She is a reader of tarot.
Well, guys, I have a really great sign for you today. I do like tarot cards. Like I said before in the last podcast, I messed around with tarot a little bit, back in the day. And it's something that's really stuck with me. Just practicing divination and getting to know your intuition, I think is like a really great thing. So I really felt like I needed to give somebody this like random reading. Just take what resonates, leave what doesn't. It might not be for you, but it might be for you. So right now I did pick out 4 cards just, in advance. A lot of it has to do with failed plans, failed relationships. The 4 of Wands reversed, that's all about divorce and relationships ending. The Chariot reversed is all about failed plans. So it seems like everything in life right now is kind of moving to a different direction for someone. Things are starting to break away. Things are starting to get messed up. And I think it's a sign, it's a sign that's telling you have to go in a different direction. Because even with these 2 cards that I've got, they also say the same things. Basically just everything around you is falling apart. Every plan that you have isn't working. Stuff that you got used to that you thought were going to work out, they're coming to an end at this point. So somebody needs to move on. There's somebody out there that needs to try new things and just kind of let the past die and move on to something new. And I promise you the universe has got good things going for you. So just a real quick reading that we wanted to give you guys.
I want to start with these tarot readings. And for that one specifically, I feel like it speaks to me right now because we're in a time of evolution. And, the winter solstice is coming up. So everyone's saying there's something cool that's going to happen December 21st. Yeah. And we're going through like a spiritual shift. And I believe that there are these shifts that happen. And there are lots of synchronicities between, astrology and things like that make this really special. And to attest to the change that's coming December 21st, like 2012, when the spiritual awakening happened, for me, it was the whole year. That was just a year of spiritual awakening for me. So 2012 was a really impactful year for me, simply because like I met my mentor that year, went on several trips with him, learned like really close. It was like the proximity of it made it a very conducive environment for spiritual awakening. But for me, it was like a whole year thing. And I feel like with the way this year is going, it would be interesting if the spiritual shift wasn't just something to counteract it, but something that was like it moved in the opposite direction quite drastically. So it was like the year has been kind of rough for us, like quite obviously rough for the world, in fact. So it would make sense that the like awakening that's to happen would be something that totally awakens the world.
I mean, I feel like with this new thing, I don't know if anybody else has been feeling this, but it seems like we're almost having a shift completely from what it was 5 years ago, even throughout those 5 years, into something new and something better. Like the universe has decided to like cut off whatever it was that we thought was going to be the right thing and is moving us into something new. And that's so cool. I mean, it's frustrating. God, is it frustrating?
Oh
It
my
is so
goodness.
uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It like you have to grow and you have to like sit with yourself and really try to figure out why it is that you're so upset that you can't have this thing anymore. But I mean, again, like the gift that we're getting in the end is actually what's meant for us, and that's what you have to keep your mind on.
So, yeah. So basically, what we're saying, if you're going through a period right now where you feel like everything is being shaken, your support is being taken out from under you, and your plans are coming up short, and the different things that you had put in place that was going to usher you into the new year is kind of twisting up. I feel like it's the reading is specifically for you in that the next year you have to be someone different with different goals and motives in order for things to succeed. So change isn't a negative thing because you can't move into new places being the same old person. You have to bring new vibration into higher vibe areas. So it's a good thing. The stretching and the growth is never a friendly process, but its result is very pleasant. So just want you guys to know that, and totally on the same page. We're all going through the same thing. Don't don't fret.
Right. Don't take it so seriously if you start losing people too, guys. It's a part of life, and like Cal just said, like if you get to a point where you're having to start growing and morphing into something else, people aren't going to be able to come with you because they're going to stay the same. So, just be thankful that you got to have a relationship with them anyway.
Yeah, this was really something difficult for me to get, simply because like I had lots of friends. Like I started my spiritual journey, and a lot of people can probably attest, but there's a period where when you start your spiritual walk that you meet lots of new people and you have lots of community and everything is really like new and vibrant and it's just like a great experience. But over time, it seems like as you mature as a person spiritually, mentally, people will start to whittle down. You'll start to lose these different interactions and people and communities, and your circle will get smaller. But it's about the quality, not the quantity of people. But that was something I really struggled with a lot in the beginning. Was that I've met all these amazing people, and I do care for them all. And I do want to be in their lives, but it's like I have to reserve myself and pick which people are actually a part of my human experience right now, and to actually know that where you are currently, you meet people for that current phase of your evolution, and you let those old people go so that you can make room for new people in the evolution. It's always it's a bit of a confusing thing to think I'm losing people and I'm always going to be alone. But if the universe makes space, that means that it's going to fill that space with something else.
Right. The universe is never going to leave you empty. That doesn't make sense. You're going to meet new people that are going to have to try to teach you to move in a different way. You got to meet people like that. And sometimes they're going to be friends or family members or significant others who get in the way of that. And it sucks. It hurts. It's awful, but you just got to roll with the punches. That's the best thing to do, is just to be determined to be happy.
I think I forgot to mention the new Patreon for this month.
No.
My sincerest apologies, but we have a Patreon, and I do want to make a note of it because it is very important. Thank you so much for the donation, Josh P. I could pronounce your last name, but I want to keep you technically private, but I do know how much you gave. I do appreciate the synchronicity in it as well. So if you are watching this, thank you so much for the support. And yes, if you would like to support the channel, again, the link is in the description. And there are some special things, like I write special things that I'll put in there, and different scripts, and you guys have basically the first pick of what videos I make. If you have any cool topics, I pull from that pool first before the other ones, just because you guys are obviously paying for it, so that makes sense. that seems fair. But thank you so much, Josh P. I appreciate it. But yeah, I was gonna say that it's so interesting that it'll be the people closest to you that give you such a hard time about the evolution that you'll be making or a dream that you'll have. And I've had one person in particular that I can recall who was going through a situation like they're, moving into a new phase of their life, and they're trying to go with their dream. They're trying to go with their gut, and everyone around them is telling them, hey, you probably shouldn't do that. It's not lucrative, this, that, it's going to be difficult. But I get really passionate about it when it comes to conforming to normal society, because that's what you're doing. Cowardice in American society isn't running away from a battlefield. In our society, it's conforming to what everyone else is doing. So I heard it put, Earl Nightingale, if you guys want to look him up, really, really good dude. He came out with a video called, it's actually a track, but I believe it's made into a video. It's called The Strangest Secret. You can look that up. I think he also has a supplemental book called The 17 Biblical Principles to Success. Even if you're not a Christian, you can get something valuable because it's like a manifestation sort of book, but you don't have to confound yourself over when he mentions scripture, which is not very often. It's about how he learned to make things work for him. And he basically says in that, the person who's successful is the one that is moving toward their goal. The way he puts it exactly, I believe, is the person that is successful is the one that is taking steps to actualize their goal. Like every day, they're realizing their worthy ideal. So if you have something in mind, say you want to make music, say you want to make art, or you like films or anything artistic, because people in our society like to say that if it's not STEM, you're not going to be successful in life. But if it's some artistic pursuit that you have, the fact that you're pursuing it every day, that you're moving toward it, you're making some stride in the right direction, means that you're a successful person. Because if you look at the rest of society, if people are just going to work just to survive, and they're not moving toward a dream or an ambition that they have, if they're not trying to make the world a better place through their expression of creativity, they're not really moving anywhere. So statistics would show that probably about 95% of people aren't in the wealthy class of the world, maybe more depending on what you believe. But if 95% of people don't know why they're going to work and they're just doing it because everyone else does it, and they just need to eat and that's really all they care for in their life, if you go down the same road that everyone else went down, and this is just common sense, if you do the same things you see everyone else do and nobody is happy that you're looking at, if no one is fulfilled, clearly you should stop doing that. But when people try to break out of that conformist mindset, they get ridiculed, they get chastised. And that's the Matrix. That's people being sucked back into the Matrix to believe that, okay, I have to do this exactly. I have to go to work this many years, retire, have my family, and that's it. That's all. There's more to this human experience than fueling the capitalist machine. And that was one of the biggest things we were talking about lately was the Matrix. We did recently see the Matrix. What were your thoughts on the Matrix? I don't remember asking you.
I want to share with you guys because I've seen The Matrix, plenty of times. It came out when I was just a child. So of course, that was one of the best blockbuster movies at the time. So I've seen it many times, but it never really connected with me. I never really saw The Matrix as being something that could actually be real. So having my first experience, thinking that The Matrix could be real, we were actually sitting in the Culver's drive-through in the car.
Yeah.
And we have this thing whenever we go to Culver's that right when I say it, or if I say I want to go to Culver's for dinner, everyone shows up. Everyone. And it's it's not even a popular Culver's. This isn't a Culver's right off the highway type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
This is just a Culver's that's down the street in a normal neighborhood setting. And I'm telling you, there'll be 10 cars in the line at 9 o'clock at night. It doesn't even matter. So, Cal and I have started playing a game where instead of saying where we're going to go, we just say we're going to go somewhere else. So that way nobody shows up. And it hit me.
We're giving the techniques away.
Oh, right. Right. Yeah. The Matrix is going to know now.
That's why you come to this channel, though, for the techniques.
Right.
The techniques.
So I'm sitting in the parking lot and we get to Culver's. There's only like 2 people in the line and we're like, ha, it worked.
Mm.
And so we're sitting in the line and all of a sudden 3 more people pull in behind us. And it's like, and then I think another person pulled in behind them. And it was like, I finally had an epiphany almost where I was like, these people in the cars in front of me and the cars behind me, they're not real. They are literally just the Matrix trying to get a reaction out of me. Like, because I'm somebody, I don't have a lot of patience when I'm going out and doing stuff. So if I'm out getting food, like I want to get it as soon as possible. So if I see that there's a bunch of people there, then obviously it upsets me. And so it kind of made me realize that like the Matrix is nothing but something trying to get a reaction out of you. So your mom comes in your room and she's complaining about how dirty it is and how you've never done your homework and, you know, blah, 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 when you're still in school. It's like, in that moment, is she real? Like, or is she just trying to further the Matrix agenda? You know what I mean? And that's the stuff that I'm thinking about now. And I'm like, are you real? Is my husband real? Like,
I mean, I think I'm real, but that's the case though. Like, I'm not
Right.
real though. That's the thing. Like, and when I say I'm not real, like everyone is just like, pfft, you know, like the eye roll sort of thing. But like, honestly, think about it for a minute. What is I? Like, who is me? That's ego. That's your idea of who you are based on. Well, let's be honest. How do you know who you are? Society tells you who you are. The people around you tell you who you are. And because of those two things, you believe that you are this certain person. Let's say you're this mask. Let's just put it like that. And everyone tells you, oh, you're like this, you're like that, or you should be like this. Society likes to say, you should be like this, you should look like this, you should talk, walk, act like this, do this. And so you think that you are those things in relation to other people, what have you. So that's the Matrix. Like, it's this false idea that like who I am is contingent upon what other people see. And I have there's a huge, oh my God. Sorry, there's a huge spider crawling on the wall.
No.
I don't have arachnophobia, but I hope I killed him. Because if he's on the ground crawling around now, that'd be terrible. Well, if you start to see me crawling on walls, I clearly didn't get him. But anyway, if you want to look at the Matrix like that, like it's trying to get you to conform. Now, like the universe has a plan. It has a motive. Like, you know, you're here to learn things. You're here to evolve and to help people, of course. But if you continually focus yourself on what other people perceive, and this is what I was about to say. I have a video on the channel talking about, this is an older video, talking about the nature of reality. And it basically, it just talks about the simulation theory and how it's perfectly scientifically valid that our conscious minds only perceive a certain amount of information. Like, say you go into a new environment. I've heard before in a class I was taking that your subconscious mind can process about 41,000 bits of information. I don't know how they measure the bits of information, but, you know, whatever. When you're in a new environment, you know, you only process, whoa, there's a lot of people here, it's bright here, different things like that. But your subconscious mind is processing temperature in a very complex way, balance. It's processing, you know, the density of certain objects you touch, whether or not people are looking at you, you know, the different danger cues going on in the environment. So many pieces of information that you are totally not even aware of, that if you were aware of them, people would call that the sixth sense. They would call that like a psychic ability. And that video, I'm basically talking about, like, this is the truth about psychics. Like, people are tapping into modes of information that they're tapping into ways of acquiring information that go beyond the normal five senses simply because they're more connected to their subconscious mind. So it would be like if one day science was able to, and I think we're there, I think we can do that. Like, we know that thoughts are things that are transmitted from the brain. They have electrical signals to them. That's something you can test with a with an MRI scan or something like that. It's something that you can test. You can put electrodes on the brain, and you can figure out what parts of the brain light up when you think certain things or feel certain ways. So we know there's an electrical signal from the brain, of course. So let's say one day we're able to detect this with a machine externally, not having something physical on the person sending the thought. And we were to say one day prove that, okay, thoughts can be transmitted through the air to someone else and you pick them up. I mean, if you think about it, we actually do that right now. I am making sounds with my mouth, and you're receiving those sounds in your eardrums that actually just come through as a wavelength that is then processed by your brain. And you take those symbols and little clicks and clacks of my mouth and you form pictures in your head. That's telepathy. That's communication. We just call it something different. I'm basically saying that the sixth sense exists. We're just not tapping into those abilities. And my conclusion was that we don't tap into those more mysterious and mystical abilities because they're not essential for us to survive in this 3D reality. We don't need to be able to see through walls or perceive whether or not someone is looking at us from behind or other things like that in 3D reality, because our lives aren't being threatened, of course. It'd be different if we were living in an environment where they didn't need to. That was a huge bunch of psychobabble, but I just felt like I had to mention it. But that's sort of what I was thinking about, and it ties in with the simulation theory because there's so much that isn't real. There's so much that people walk around all day with their masks on, who they think they are in relation to who the world tells them they have to be. None of that is real. How you all perceive me does not exist. It's not real. The reason why I brung up the sixth sense and that whole the truth about us not perceiving reality, none of us perceives reality the way it actually is. Our minds process the chaos of what actually is into a more distilled, palatable form of this conscious experience. None of us are seeing what reality actually looks like. That's scientific proof. Don't argue with me on this. Stop. Don't even try. Don't start. This is scientific proof. It makes sense. There's no way around that. None of us are perceiving 100% reality, and proof of that is we use machines to calculate reality because we can't experience it with our senses accurately. Because of that, if someone says that you are a certain way, or you do a certain thing, or you are a certain person, it all goes back to their ego, their perception of who you are. None of that is real because they're not perceiving who you actually are. Neither are you. You're making up what you believe because of what your friend said to you or what an ex said to you or something like that. You make up what you believe based on other people all the time. And that speaks to the nature of the illusion. That speaks to the nature that all of this isn't real. And people ask, how do you not get offended by people? I see videos like this all the time on YouTube. How do you just let things roll off your back? And what would you say is your method for having that happen? How do you get around that? I mean, it's difficult to say, how do you not get angry at people? But you've been coming upon this awakening as well, that we're living in this illusion. This 3D reality isn't real. So what is that?
Mm-hmm. At this point, it's hard, because the people that you care about the most, they're the ones that are going to be trying to tear you down the most. Little snide comments that they make, jokes, anything could set off your insecurities because your ego is insecure. Your ego wants to maintain this image of itself, like Cal was saying. And when people, especially people that you care about, when it feels like they're attacking your ego, that's when it's hard to really get past something. I think the best thing to do is set boundaries. You'll run into people that will not accept your boundary. You thought that they cared about you so much. You thought that you cared about them so much, that your friendship, your relationship was so tight. And then you end up finding out that you asked for one small thing for them to stop doing, and they can't because it messes up their perception of themselves. So really at that point, the best thing to do is to have some self-respect. Lay out your boundary. When that person decides that they don't want to accept that boundary, I don't have anything else to say. I don't want to speak to you anymore. At that point, like, I'm not going to allow you to make me feel bad about myself every single day just because you want to make a joke or just because you want to make a comment. Like, you shouldn't have to deal with that. No one should have to deal with that, especially with people that you perceive as being like a really close friendship, relationship, whatever. That's family and friends and significant others. Like, it really seems like the people that are closest to you are the ones that are trying to tear you down. And it can be sometimes that they're insecure about the direction that their own lives are going, or the path that they took. So when they see that you're trying to better yourself or trying to be, just a better person in general, maybe even not just yourself, but just to be a better person to people, um, you'll see that they won't give you that back. And you'll see that they think that they can do whatever they want to you because of how much you care about them. And it's the worst part. And it's hard. Like, I don't really even know how to get past it. I don't know how to make yourself, not feel that like stomach wrenching, like heart dropping, like I don't want to be away from this person sort of feeling. It's just something that you have to be able to choose, you know? And when you're in a position where being alone may not be possible, don't beat up yourself for not being able to stand up for yourself, because everybody has a period where they cannot stand up for themselves. Everybody. And most of the time, some of that hurt from that other person's period where they couldn't stand up for themselves gets put over into that period where they're with you. And that could be the problem too. Like, you have to be empathetic, you have to have self-respect, and you have to understand that people come and go. You're not always going to get to have somebody in your life or the same person in your life throughout. Some people get to have 12, 15, 20-year long friendships, and other people only get to have 2. Roll with the punches. That's all you can do. Do you do something particular when you feel like somebody has to be taken out of your life or somebody's not respecting you?
One of the first things and the hardest things to do is not try to disprove them or make them wrong. That's the hardest thing to do, because if it's a situation where you have to break away from someone, again, guys, apologize if there's a lot of noise going on. Can't be helped. I'm sorry. But you get to a place where someone basically has to be removed from your life. Usually, if that's the case, that person they're not going to leave very nicely. It never usually happens cleanly. Every experience I've had with leaving people or separating myself from a group or a movement of people, it's been cataclysmic. There are people at a church I used to attend when I started to really make my branch off into more of a Gnostic view, a more mystic sort of view. That was tough because there were some people that I really cared for. And we're going totally different ways. My mentor recently, we're going totally different ways. And it doesn't hurt my faith, my belief in God or the universe and how that works, but it hurts theirs, I've noticed. And the hardest part about separation, the first part, is not trying to discredit who they are. Okay, they disagree with me, they have to be wrong. Don't do that. Don't look at it as right or wrong, and I'm actually going to make a video about this because I really feel passionately about this. Right and wrong do not exist. And now people are like, immediately, I can feel that, like, there's a palpable energy when I say that. But immediately people are like, well, there's definitely a right and wrong because there's things that I wouldn't do and things that, yes. There are things that should not be done. Murdering other people, it's not the best. It's not conducive for a healthy community. Like, we're not going to survive if we kill everybody that we're not happy with. There's no way to learn that way. But right and wrong is a perspective of judgment that separates you from that thing you're judging. When you stop saying, okay, this was a good thing, this was a bad thing that happened, this is a good or bad person, and you just accept what happens, you accept who they are, you let them come and go without it affecting you. That, I feel like, would be the first and most powerful thing. There are terrible things that happen on this earth. Terrible things. But there are amazing things that happen. And if you close your heart off because of the negative things, then you close your heart off to the positive things. And so in order to take the good, the bad must be there as well. That's just the way this thing works. I don't make the rules. This is just what I'm experiencing. Don't get mad at me. This is just what I've experienced of the world. Like, you can't shut out half and expect the whole of a good thing. It's just not possible. Like, that utopic mindset. Like, this is my issue with some people's view on heaven. And I'm not saying anybody is wrong. You can believe whatever you want. But this idea of a utopia under a God who judges things so vindictively and harshly doesn't seem like a utopia at all, you know. And I recently heard it was a TikTok, I forget the gentleman's name, but he was asked, like, if when you got to heaven or you got to the gates of heaven, like, how would you respond to God? And he'd be like, and he said, bone cancer in children, like, what's that about? Like, wars and countless deaths, unnecessary deaths. Like, why didn't you stop that? Like, what was the whole point of this whole thing? And that really makes you think, like, why? And then you get that, you know, it's like a cute little thing that people would say, the atheists would say to the believing people, like, if God is all powerful and he does not stop horrible things from happening, then he's not just. But if he can't stop those things from happening, if he's not all powerful, then he's not God. So you can't have one without the other. And it makes you think, like, what is the real point to this whole thing? How do you get by that? And it's been a very difficult thing for me to come against. But in those difficult talks, those difficult moments of revelation, that's when you grow the most, because it's challenging your worldview. This is why I have the belief that when it comes time to learn something new or to embrace a new teaching, you have to open your mind to it. Everyone starts off closed-minded because your ego is attached to what you believe. And when you start to challenge that, your ego dies. That's ego death. You don't have to have a 5-gram mushroom trip to have an ego death. Talk to someone who doesn't believe in what you believe, and your ego will start to die. I promise you. The instant someone comes up with a thought or a notion that's different than yours, you'll feel it in your chest, like, no, this can't be right. I have to be right, otherwise I don't exist. Like, you know, it's weird that we work this way, but it's just a difficult thing to get around. But at the end of the day, like, I feel like your mindset about God, about reality, has to be malleable, because we don't know. And I love Christians, I do. And I don't want this to be like a really harsh or negative talk, but I do. But there are people, they're not just Christians, you know, it's all sorts of faiths that believe they are the only ones that are right. And they are willing to fight wars and fight and die over that belief. And it is baffling to me that some people are so locked up in themselves that they believe that their one way is totally correct and nothing else is possible. Nothing on this earth is 100% accurate. And if you want to say science is 100% accurate, we come out with newer and better ways of testing the same old things and furthering and increasing our certainty on everything. That's why you'll never see a hand sanitizer that's 100% effective. It just does not happen in this frame of reality. Nothing is 100%. So always try, and I at least do, is to go with an open mind with everything. Because if you go into something thinking you always know absolutely everything, you prevent yourself from learning anything. You never grow. So I love Christian people, but that tends to be the mindset, you know?
Yeah, and I don't want to get it wrong. Like, we're not mad at God. We're not mad at Christians.
Oh, I am. I hate him.
Okay, well, I'm not. I'm not mad at God.
Jokes.
But I feel like everybody does get to this point where they're like, and it happens multiple times, you know, throughout my family. My family is very Baptist. So my grandma took us to church every Sunday. I remember sleeping over at church before. And then my mom, she was in Job's Daughters. I don't know if anybody knows about that. But my family is very set in a Christian sort of belief. So as I got older and I started to realize that the Bible was very sexist, it was very homophobic, it was very racist in a way, I was like, I just don't understand these things. Everybody is created equal. Like, I don't understand why a woman has to be less than a man, or why, like it has to be mankind instead of like, I mean, there's two genders, like that stuff bothered me when I was like 16, 15, 16, 17. And I can remember talking to my great uncle who like sang at church and was very involved, and he gave me a book that was kind of talking about all the women in the Bible that were very necessary for everything to turn out the way that it did. And I mean, I understood his point, but it never really made me feel better, because I mean, Paul still said what he said to, was it the Corinthians? Was it them? The Corinthian church?
It was one of them. The epistles are all just letters to
Yeah.
the different churches.
But basically, just saying that women shouldn't speak in church, and women need to cover themselves up, and they shouldn't wear jewelry to church, and just all this stuff. It's like, it is very sexist, and I couldn't look past it, and I don't think a lot of people can look past it. It comes with the same thing of, bone cancer in children. I just don't understand what lesson there is to be learned from that, you know? And so all of us get to this point. I think even Christians get to a point where they're like, how could a perfect God make such an unperfect, or an imperfect world, or an imperfect society of people, So I don't know. Not, we're not mad at God. We believe everything. Every religion is right. Every religion has some level of fact to it. So, we can't be angry at anybody for believing what they believe. This is just what we believe.
Yeah, this idea that there's only one way to the top of the mountain is really weird to me.
Yeah.
It's ego. It's all ego. It's all like 100% ego. I don't know how people, such smart and educated people, will have a worldview that prevents anyone else's belief to be valid. I don't understand that. And I've met people who've had amazing experiences and encounters with God who weren't Christian. And it didn't cause them to become Christian. It was just, they just had an encounter with God and they ran with that. And it led them somewhere else. It's like, it's all a strategy. It's all a plan, especially with Christianity. I've noticed that, like, it's about getting your convert. It's about filling the church. So bigger congregation means bigger bills, for the church, more money.
Mm.
And not every church. I can't say that. I mean, that would be a gross overstatement. But, like, a majority. When you look, that's the blanket over things. But on a lighter note, the fights were, I think, this past Saturday.
But yeah, Jake Paul and Mike Tyson. I wish that we could have seen it.
Jake Paul, he did not fight Mike Tyson, but they both fought that day. I know. I just wanted to give you a hard time.
I knew you were going to do that to me.
But Jake Paul he fought, what was that guy's name? Nate Robinson. And I heard it was like a round 2, like, knockout. Like, oh boy, Nate.
Right.
I mean, like, you can play ball, you can jump high, but you don't have the reach, man, to fight in this sort of competitive realm. And of course, the interesting thing was that Tyson and Roy Jones Jr.'s fight was a draw. Like, people paid money.
Oh yeah.
And then people lost because it was a draw. Like, you know how upsetting that would be? It's like, oh, I bet on Tyson to win. It's like, oh, it was a draw, so you lost anyway. Like, that's terrible.
That's not good.
I hate that. Nah. Like, it feels bad, tastes bad. Yeah.
Yeah.
The gambling mindset.
Yeah. It's risky.
Some people make it look cool. Like, you get those movies like, what was that? It was a movie called, there's movies like 21, and what was the recent one? It was like a magic movie. They had these, but they were like thieves, but magician thieves. I think Eisenberg was in it. And Now You See Me is what it was.
Oh,
You're no
okay,
help at
okay.
all. Come on.
Well, I thought that's what you were getting at, but I was like, what'd you say? Magic thieves? Is that what you said?
They were like magical thieves, if that makes sense.
I guess.
Yeah, because they stole stuff and they used magic, but not
Yeah,
real
I've seen
magic.
that
It was like
movie.
illusions. But I thought about it because, of course, I was recently I watched Batman vs. Superman recently.
Mm-hmm.
It is a terrible movie. But I watched it because I was bored. and I was in the mood for some Batman. Ben Affleck is not my favorite Batman. He did his best, I guess, but I don't know. He's not my favorite Batman. But I saw Jesse Eisenberg in there, and it just now reminded me of like that gambling sort of mindset, but like taking the gambling into your own hands, like using illusions and tricks. I heard Chris Angel was really good, and if he wanted to, like way back Chris Angel, why am I bringing up Chris Angel? But like I heard that he was so good with the cards that he would trick them every single time to where he was stealing money from them basically. And he was doing it with a camera on him. And they were like, we still can't see how he's doing it. With cameras in the casino watching him do it. And so, like, it's definitely something to it. If there was something to learn, it'd be magic for the purpose of stealing money.
Robbing banks.
Yeah, robbing banks with magic.
I honestly, I just want to say, I know we went on to something more low key, not as serious, but I do want to say that I'm really happy that we had this conversation, just because not only are we at the end of a year, but we're in a waning moon cycle after just having a full moon that was, I think, in Gemini, and it was all about getting rid of things. You've got a tarot card reading here that's all about getting rid of things. I'm noticing it in my life that I've got to get rid of stuff. You're getting rid of things. Like, I think right now is just a purge. Everybody just has to purge away the things that don't make you happy. Yeah, I really just love this conversation of, getting stuff out of your life, and it's almost like weeding out everything. Just, you've got this garden in your mind, you've got this garden in your soul, and you've got to go in and you've got to get all those weeds out now, because 2020 is almost over, 2021 is almost here. Let's hope and pray that this is going to be a good year for everybody, because goodness gracious, we deserve it. I don't know if you guys saw February for 2021, but it is lined up. Like, I think the entire 4 weeks is like, Sunday straight to Saturday. Like, it looks great. It's super symmetrical. And I think that we need some symmetry and we need some satisfaction going on in 2021. So February might be a really good freaking year or month. Something that I've been noticing, especially with this whole thing with the Matrix and coming out of the simulation, like when I realized that I could be in the Matrix sitting in that Culver's drive-through, I finally was able to take my consciousness out of my ego and into my soul, or my spirit. I'm just going to call it like a higher consciousness. So like HC is kind of what I've been nicknaming it on my own. So I was finally able to get into that mindset, and now I've been practicing it, just switching in and out, because something I've noticed is that the HC can also be your higher self. Like, you get answers from your HC that your ego is just not able to think of. So manifesting, when that's, when you're able to get into that HC spot, what I've noticed is you have to be in the right mindset. And I hate when people say that, because they say that you need to be happy. Like, when you have those joy, happy feelings, that's when, you're going to be able to manifest exactly what you want. But I don't know about you guys, but it's hard for me to get into that. It's hard for me to sit here and like move into a happy place and really start to feel joy, and then think about, on top of that, what it is that I want, and try to set my intention into the universe for that thing.
Most of my manifestation usually goes toward trying to be or feel how I would feel in that new situation. Like, it requires changing yourself, but I feel like people always, they say to change yourself, but they don't talk about how. And you are, if we go back to what I was saying earlier about your ego not actually being you, what are you actually? You're an awareness, which means that you can move yourself from past, present, and future simultaneously, instantly, because you're just an awareness. If you were apart from the ego, you would be the one. You'd be back to your godly nature, because you're not being filtered through anything. So if you're trying to create, you're trying to co-create or manifest, you're doing that by basically removing your awareness from your present situation and the emotions that are tying you down to that certain situation, and you're moving your awareness into a place that you're creating. So if I wanted to, say, live in a bigger house, I would move my awareness, I would move my intention to being in that body of me in that bigger house. And I would feel the emotions that come with that. Like the mind is a very powerful thing. You can create all of those. So I usually go with that. I usually do something like that.
I like that. I definitely notice that, like, when people don't describe how it is that you take yourself out of the situation that you're in and get yourself out of the emotions, that is so frustrating when you're just starting out, because it's like, I want these things to become reality, but I don't exactly understand what you're saying. And so trying to find somebody to really explain it is like a headache. So I would say what's worked for me is realizing that the matrix is really what's starting all these negative things that are happening. So if you've noticed, it's much easier to manifest bad things than it is to manifest good things.
Right.
I believe that comes from your reaction to what the matrix throws at you. The matrix wants you to feel weak. The matrix wants you to feel insignificant. It wants you to feel like you can't break out of it. So it's going to send you things to make you feel that way. And so if you can just keep a mental note to not react to things like that, I think you'll see that your manifesting work is so much easier, and things just kind of come up out of nowhere, because maybe the matrix is looking for a reaction or just like a feeling in general. If you feel happy about something, then the matrix is like, okay, well, I'll give that to you. That could be like a simulation theory type of thing.
That's exactly what I was. You reminded me of my idea about that. Is that the way this illusion works, the way the simulation actually works, is we have to create what happens next. There's that episode of Rick and Morty where they're in the simulation with these aliens are trying to get the recipe to concentrated dark matter, and Rick he's describing the process to Morty, and he's like, it's like a conveyor belt. It renders in front of us and de-renders behind us, and that's sort of what this simulation feels like. It feels like nothing gets created until you respond one way or the other to something that comes at you. And so the simulation itself is trying to figure out what to hand you next, because you are creating your reality. It's just giving you hints about how to create it. So this is why the Buddhists say, don't react to a situation. It comes down to aversion and attraction. Like, don't let either one of them sway you. Create what you want to create. Like, it comes to being addicted to something, or like vehemently hating something and trying to get away from it. Like, you will create the thing that you're trying to get away from. Like, we live in such a paradoxical simulation that the things that you want the most, you don't get them until you stop wanting them or stop feeling you need them. And then you get them. Just like love. People are like, oh, when you stop looking for it, you'll find it. Why? That's just how this simulation works. That's how the matrix works. And I was recently looking up the Ascended Masters, and there's a pretty cool channel. If you guys don't know it, the channel is Open Your Reality. I think it's actually a really cool channel. I like his like documentary sort of like videos that he uploads. But he was talking about the Ascended Masters and this possibility that this is just a level of a simulation. And you could look at the simulation as like Inception. Like, you're in different layers of the simulation. And when you get out of this 3-dimensional layer and you ascend, say become an Ascended Master, then you start to move into a different realm of the simulation, or a different realm of reality where you're just with Ascended Masters. It's like going from kindergarten to preschool. It's like you're moving away from the violent, dumb 3-dimensional reality to a more peaceful, oh, we all understand what's going on here sort of reality. It's a maturity switch that I think goes on there. But it's like, we live in it, man. We live in the matrix.
Yeah. I like to look at it as like The Sims. My ego is my sim, or maybe I am a sim personally. And then my higher consciousness is what's controlling it. So my higher consciousness is just playing a video game. And my higher consciousness is trying to figure out what is it that I can give this ego to make it happy, while the simulation itself is just throwing stuff at me, bunch of different stuff. And I'm trying to let my higher conscious, or my ego is trying to let my higher consciousness know that I like this thing, I don't like this thing. And so I feel like when you do, make a bigger reaction to the things that you don't like compared to the things that you do like, it makes your higher consciousness almost think like, okay, well, I mean, you feel more vehemently about this thing than you do about this thing. So I'm just going to keep giving you this thing because that's what is like making you alive at this point. Like you're functioning because of this thing.
That's where all
So
the
it's like,
energy's going.
right,
Yeah.
you got to switch it. Like get that
Yeah.
stuff over to that thing so that your higher consciousness is like, okay, we'll do that then.
Yeah. Yeah, it is like The Sims. Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
good. I feel like
Manifesting.
manifesting. Honestly, like yeah, everything is manifesting. It seems like, especially if you're in a video game, you're trying to create the next thing. I feel like we're kind of running out of our time here, so we'll save more topics for next time. But if you guys are new to the podcast, I'll be doing a podcast every week with Taylor as my co-host, and we'll be talking about a number of different topics from here to there, all sorts of different things that come across us, different methods I'm practicing, different world events, and, what we think about them. And just if you care about listening to us ramble on about things, you're going to love more of this.
Yeah.
There are 4 other episodes of the podcast as well. And if you would like to have your name mentioned on the podcast, if you'd like to support the work that we're doing, please consider clicking the link in the description of this video and becoming a Patreon. And that is... Oh, wait, no, it isn't. You can go to my website as well, calmarquez.com, if you want one-on-one coaching from me to help you with life situation, awakening psychic abilities, this or that. You can find that information there. And going to be making some really cool videos soon. I want to make some short films, but I have to meet with certain people to make it work. But it's possible. So I hope you... Oh, yeah, soon. It's coming up soon. I hope you guys enjoy the video. I'm going to be coming up with like an update video soon, maybe in the next week or so. I'll have like a specific update video where I let you guys know what's been going on, where we are, what we're going to be doing in the future, and so on and so forth. But I hope this talk was at least entertaining, at least somewhat less boring than average.
Yeah.
And I love you guys so much. Thank you so much for the support on the channel. And as always, never stop adventuring.